Good evening. I'm hereby calling to order the November 13th, 2023 Committee of the Whole meeting. May I have a roll call, please?
Mr. Balestrea.
Present.
Mr. DeJohn.
Here.
Mr. Mano.
Here.
Mr. Monaco.
Here.
Mrs. Sabetta.
Here.
Mrs. Snyder.
Here.
Mrs. Teresi.
Here.
Please stand and join me in the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. The purpose of the meeting this evening is to discuss the following: healthcare benefits of Mayfield Heights employees, as well as change managements to the Aquatic Community Center project. At this time, I will now introduce Renee Augustine, our HR director, and she will introduce you to Natalie from the Fidelity Group.
Good evening. I wanted to introduce you to Natalie LeCouture, who is from the Fidelity Group, and she is our client services manager on our account, or vice president of, I'm downgrading her title. Natalie joins us every month for our healthcare committee meeting and has helped us through our renewal process. So I'm here to answer any questions you might have.
It might be helpful if you guys walked everybody through what the renewal process was, how early this all started, and the mechanics of it.
Okay, so you received my memo, and we reviewed renewals for the medical and prescription drug coverage. Originally, we had a 5.5% renewal increase from OGBC Medical Mutual. So OGBC is the consortium we're in with some other cities. And we were able to negotiate that down to 4%. Karen was very instrumental at the finance meeting, or the board meeting at OGBC. So we got that down to 4%. And outside of OGBC, Medical Mutual quoted us, I think it was 21.4%. So obviously, we wanted to stay in there. We did have some renewals from some other companies, and they were very attractive, as you can see in the memo. But what we've found is that these companies will give us this very attractive rate and then incrementally increase it every year. And then in about year 3 or 4, it's extremely large increase. So we've had about a 5% average increase for OGBC since we've had them in 2019. And then our trend for dental increases is similar. We notice that they give us very attractive rates in the beginning and then go up incrementally. And that same thing happened with Cigna this year. So then we went out and got renewals, and Delta Dental gave us a pretty attractive renewal at a negative 4.1% for a 2-year rate guarantee. And our vision insurance stayed flat, and the group's been happy with them, so we did not shop that. So the Healthcare Committee voted on the OGBC Medical Mutual of Ohio at a 4% increase with a 1-year rate guarantee. Dental insurance with Delta Dental at a negative 4.1% with the 2-year rate guarantee. And vision insurance with iMed with no increase for 1 year.
I will recuse myself from this discussion, so Mrs. Teresi will take over.
Mr. Balestrea.
Renee, have you ever proposed anything longer than 1-year guarantees, or the insurance companies not do that? I noticed this year you have the dental giving you a 2-year guarantee, but not medical or beyond that.
No,
Do they ever?
We haven't seen that in a long time, but Natalie can probably answer that better.
Yes, sometimes they do that, but the OGBC, you're in the OGBC program, they don't have that. I'm seeing a lot of medical carriers move away from that. Medical Mutual did that a few years ago. They
Right,
did
right.
this like blanket two-year renewal at 9%. Unfortunately, a lot of those groups that got that 9% for 2 years got a steep increase the following year. So I haven't seen it from any other insurance carriers at this time.
Okay, great, thank you.
We would love that, though.
I know, I would love that too. Good question.
Never hurts to try.
Yeah, that's right.
Anyone else have any questions?
I do.
Mr. Monaco?
Renee, I have a couple questions. Number one, do you get health insurance through the city?
Do I?
Yes.
Yes.
And you put this package together, right?
I work with the Healthcare Committee, yes.
Okay. I'm sorry. The second question is, have you done a study of other cities in the surrounding area to find out how many cities are paying the full annual deductible for HRA?
That I have not studied, but that is something that's negotiated through our contracts, our collective bargaining agreements.
Hi, sir. So I know that the city hasn't done a study, but we have provided a report called the Labor Toolkit. We currently, at the Fidelity Group, represent over 33 municipalities in Northeast Ohio. And we provided some information there regarding what types of plans the other cities offer, including some HRAs. I would say HRAs are not as predominant as HSAs or traditional PPOs, but we did provide some data in that labor toolkit to Renee and her team showing how much employers do offer towards HRA in terms of contemporary cities in the area.
Could we be provided with that?
Sure,
please?
absolutely. I'll send Renee tomorrow morning another PDF copy, and she can forward to the council.
So I'd like to make a motion to put this on a first reading so that we can visit that and
I'll move.
So we have a motion and a second to put this, to leave this on first reading.
So, can I say anything?
I have a question, so yeah, go ahead.
Oh. So Mr. DeJohn has a question.
Do you want to go first, or?
No, you can, go ahead.
So, obviously, it's dictated by whatever the union contract says. So, when the new contract comes up for 2024, how does all of that work with what we're doing tonight?
Well, we negotiate with each union different aspects of the collective bargaining agreements, and the healthcare information is in that agreement.
I understand that, but what if you negotiate higher deductibles in the union contract for 2024?
We could try that. I mean, we can suggest anything, but I don't know what'll pass or be settled.
Yeah, so are you setting a precedence by us passing this now, and then the contract comes up later? I've always wondered why it wasn't done together. I mean, maybe you can answer that for me.
I think I can address that just from the labor
Well,
aspect
let's-
also. Well,
let's-
you're talking about the labor unions. She's not going to be able to talk about the
Well, she can tell me what's
collective
happening at
bargaining.
other cities,
Okay.
and then you can, go ahead, Mrs. Fagan.
Sure. So when there's years that you're not in labor negotiations, there's no changes typically made to contributions or deductibles and the whatnot. So we typically see cities that will have labor negotiations at different times of the year. So for example, in the spring, in the summer, whenever it may be. At that time, we often offer decrements to cities and show them what the potential savings could be, right, of your current plan with your current carrier if we increase deductibles. So at that time, they can utilize that information. That's the whole purpose of the Labor Toolkit report that we put together annually. We put it together even if there aren't labor negotiations, but I digress. So going back, you can utilize those during labor negotiations and then potentially make those changes for the following year. So they wouldn't be made right now, but they would be discussed during labor negotiations, provided potential average savings, and then they could be made for 2025. Does that make sense? Yeah.
Okay. Thank you. Is this Vega? Was that what you wanted?
That's exactly what I was going to say. It was just the timing aspect. Because we don't know when those labor contracts will be settled. It's hard to make the change for the next year. It would be a change for '25 that we would be negotiating into the contracts. And we are just starting those negotiations now, as a matter of fact, with all the unions.
So we have a motion and a second to
Another
place, to
question.
leave on, go ahead, Mr. DeJohn. Mr. DeJohn, do you have another question?
I mean, I could talk about that.
That's all right. Let's keep it on.
Mr. Monaco.
So I really don't understand. So if we need to change this one way or the other, is that going to be through the union or through the council here? Through the union. So really, there's nothing that we can even do tonight. I mean, if it's already in a contract with the union, then we have to abide by it. Is that correct?
I would, Madam Chair, Acting Chair, what council is doing tonight is voting on the best deal that we can get for health insurance right now. That's what you're voting on. Whether deductibles are changed or any portion of contributions are changed in the negotiations, that's for negotiations. But right now, council's voting on the best deal we could get for healthcare right now, based on, the team and what they've found and, what they've negotiated with companies. So, I mean, if we want our employees to have healthcare, I mean, I don't think there's a reason to vote against it.
Well, I'm not planning on voting against it. I'm just trying to find out. I like to get some information that I know we are getting the best deal. And, without, knowing what other cities are contributing to the employees' HRA, and without knowing, other programs from other companies, I really can't make an educated guess here.
But what other cities are contributing is not in this. That is in labor negotiations. That's not part of this deal.
Well, and can I just say, when you buy car insurance, you might have the same car insurance company, but yours is completely different. So it's hard to compare other cities with our city because of our demographics. That's the age of our employees and the dependents. That's the health issues that the employees and their dependents have. That's the zip codes that our employees live on or live in. That is our plan design. So everything is different. So it's very difficult to compare other cities to ours in insurance.
It is for a layman like me, but if you talk to a professional, which I have access to, I think I can get the right answer.
Well, the Fidelity Group does guide us.
So really, what I think, I don't know if this provides any clarity. We were able to get a 4% renewal with Medical Mutual through the OGBC program. We went to other insurance companies, United Healthcare, Aetna, Anthem, Cigna. We did get quotes from them as well. Some of them seems more competitive dollars-wise. Our concern about moving away from MMO is that sometimes those insurance carriers, and I can tell you from my professional experience, I've been doing this for 18 years, they will buy the business, okay? They will hook you in the first year, and then second and third years, you'll get a very high increase. So I think what we were talking about was whether you were going to renew with Medical Mutual this year at the 4% through the OGBC, and it was basically as part of a consortium, you're having a balance there. As Renee mentioned, we've had 5% year increases year over year since you've been in the OGBC. Now I think definitely we can even do a deeper dive into HRA contributions in the public sector world that could help you during your labor negotiations. We would be certainly happy to do that at the Fidelity Group. We've provided some information, but we could do an even deeper dive for you, a study. But that would, to help with the labor negotiations in 2024.
Okay, well, I
Yeah.
would appreciate it if you can add that information.
Yeah, absolutely. We will work on that, for sure.
Madam President?
Mr. DeJohn?
So is there any cities that negotiate together with your union contracts and these renewals? No, could we have, in other words, could we have gone on every month just renewing with them every month and then waiting till the contract is settled?
No, they offer one-year renewals. So you'd have to renew in January.
So are there any cities that, Mrs.
I don't know.
Augustine, maybe, there's no cities that do this?
Month by month?
No. Have it at the same time that their union contracts settled?
Oh, you mean the renewal negotiations during,
Yeah.
I don't really know any, just because it's like two different situations. Normally, the union negotiations happen at a different time, knowing that any changes that are agreed upon will take effect the following year. So, like I said, I had cities that, they do union negotiations all different times of the year. Sometimes they do them at the end of this year, but perhaps they're not going to take effect till much later. It's just, it's hard, I guess.
So our negotiations have to be 90 days from the, only 90 days prior to the term of the contract, and our insurance expires December 31st, so that's what makes it difficult.
And that's what I was asking, could you make it,
You align it, yeah.
yeah, align it till March 31st?
There's nothing.
Oh, you mean have your renewal?
Correct. So maybe we'd have a contract by
Have to be
then.
a year and a quarter, about 3.
What's the
Yeah.
correlation?
Yeah, I don't understand what you mean, sir. Like have the changes.
They're
take-
two different things.
Yeah. I mean, I don't know, I can't speak really to when, I just know what other cities do, and they typically have union negotiations not at the same time as renewal. I can't speak for all of them, some of them may,
All right.
but again,
Thank
they're
you.
done, yeah.
Mayor, did you have something?
Yeah, just, they're two completely separate things. One has really nothing to do with the other, two completely different groups. But there is no sense in putting this on readings because you're not going to get any more information than you're getting right now to affect our rate that you are voting on. So, I mean, the rate is what they have negotiated. This is what we have. It's the best rate we can get. So putting it on readings, I don't think makes any sense. But it's just delaying it, delaying the, inevitable.
So I do have a question for either or both of you. Are any of our surrounding Hillcrest municipalities in this consortium?
You mean cities in the
Lyndhurst,
area?
Highland
Yes.
Heights?
Yep, there are cities, neighboring cities that are in the consortium.
So they're all
We
in,
have
so
9 cities. I believe Renee provided, did you?
But it just has the city,
Oh, that's right.
City
Yeah,
1,
yeah.
City 2.
We had to de-identify the cities, but yes, I mean, there's a number of them, and I also work with the city of Strongsville. I'm trying to think, Willoughby is in the consortium. Connie, I mean, there's a number of them. I think there's 9 now.
and some right here in our Hillcrest area as well.
Highland Heights is.
Highland
is-
Heights.
Yes,
Okay, thank you.
right.
Any other questions or discussion? Nope. Okay, thank you, ladies. Diane, I'll turn this over to you.
Thank you, Mrs. Tressi. All right, we will now turn the meeting over to Jason Nolde with the GPD Group to review the change managements to the Aquatic and Community Center project. Mr. Nolde, thank you.
All right. Good evening, everybody. It's nice to see you again. We came to you in July of 2022, and we promised you, at that time, we put forth GMP number 4 for your review and approval, and you gave us an approval, and with that, we promised you a new state-of-the-art aquatic and community center by September of this year, within a budget of $34.8 million total project costs. And I I'm confident to say that we delivered on that. You know, it was not super easy, but I think we had a great team here that actually pulled that together. So we wanted to take this meeting to go through some of the financial reconciliation that's happening at the end of the project, give a quick overview on, you know, some of the final pictures that we have of the facility that hopefully everybody has had the ability to enjoy, and then turn it over for question and answers. We do anticipate this is going to go through a couple of readings, so you'll see that we're breaking this down into smaller pieces. So this is the first set of information that we're providing, but we are providing you what our anticipated overall final costs on the project would be. So a couple images to share with you. Again, with the new pools and slides. I think the feedback that we've heard has been tremendous, and you know, I hope that it stays that way for the foreseeable future. Some of the shade structures that you can see there as well. Our favorite part, you know, kids enjoying the facility actually. Some more of the pools and some dusk photos. You can see how it really glows at nighttime as well. And then with the community center itself, you know, reflecting upon the pool, the outdoor fireplace area, gathering area that we have off of the meeting rooms, the new gymnasium and waiting area outside, the senior fitness center area, and then the looking down the concourse at the community meeting rooms, and then of one of the meeting rooms themselves. So I wanted to break down, when we came to you in March of this year, we kind of went through the overall spreadsheet, and at that time indicated that we are starting that process of reconciling the final costs. So this updated tracker that was submitted with your information went back and compared it against the GMP number 4 that was improved in July of 2022. So that first column that's highlighted in light blue there indicates what we had at that time. And again, that cost, you'll see it in a second here. This was the second column is what was approved at the most recent council meeting that we had. And then the last column would be what we are projecting the final cost to be. And then just to recap how that is set up, the first, yeah? I'm gonna go forward with more information. So it's not intended to read all of the numbers off of here. I want to big picture share with you how the format of the spreadsheet is set up.
Can you just read the last number at the bottom in
Yes.
3 columns?
It'll be on the next slide.
Oh, on the next slide, okay.
Yeah, I get to the good stuff. So again, the way it's set up then, the GMPs are set up on top there. Anything that was previously approved in terms of change orders is the next bracket. There were provisions for the mayor or GPD, the owner's rep, to approve items under a certain threshold. That is the next bracket. And then the stuff that we're bringing forward in terms of potential change orders that's on the current resolution is on the next bracket. With that in yellow are the ones that are still pending in our court that we have a placeholder for. Then the down below are some of the soft costs. So we have the owner's contingency. As you can see, as part of this final reconciliation, we've zeroed that out to apply towards some of these change orders. We have what is called the FF&E costs. Those are furniture, fixtures, and equipment, which I'll break down. And then at the bottom there is the total project cost. And I think that's ultimately what we've been coming to council before is requesting approval to move something from the yellow bucket, from the soft costs up to the green to facilitate or to add to Higley's contract, but we have not been changing the overall bottom line, the total project cost in any of this. So this is the blow up of the last 3 lines, so you can read it a little bit better. The original GMP, or at the time of GMP number 4, when we approved it, we had a total project cost at the bottom there of $34.468. What we're projecting with the current change management plus what we have pending, our total project costs would be $34,061,319, which is almost $350,000 under the original budget that we had established in 2022. I'm not going to go through each one of these, but we're here to answer any questions that there may be. This is the list of change managements that is part of the package that we have before you. And then this is the breakdown of the soft cost, so you can see how that 820 totaled that went towards various owner-provided items that is part of a typical project. So that is part of the soft cost, the lower level bracket that we had. So with that, I'll turn it over to see if there may be any questions.
I guess I just have, if I can just start really quick. So is everything completed there?
Everything is not 100% completed. I would say 98%. But there are still some metal panels that had a delay in their fabrication that we're still, and Brent or Gavin, if you want to add to that.
Yeah, so things to complete, there's 2 glass panels in the gym that have been problematic getting. We've got them a couple times and it's been the wrong glass, so we're supposed to get the correct glass this Thursday, so we're keeping our fingers crossed on that, but we feel optimistic that we will. And then the metal panels Jason mentioned, there was a conscious decision going into opening the pool and whether or not we were going to have all the metal panel on at that time. So we decided not to move forward with the metal panel in that pool area. What that did was, obviously it opened the pool for use, right? But it didn't allow us to finish that. So now we were able to measure the final work in place and then get the metal panel into fabrication. So we're supposed to get the balance of the metal panel this Thursday. And then we'll start installing the balance with 2 crews. And then we're optimistic that we'll have that done by the end of the year. So, but there was a problem getting the final metal panel just because of the nature of the material that's involved with that. So that's all we have to do that's left from a work standpoint on the porte-cochere and the HSS beams between the 2 buildings. And then there's a little bit in the breezeway in the pool building, so.
Okay. And then as far as the playground goes and the cement work, like
Yeah,
the sidewalk?
so they're supposed to be coming Thursday, I believe, to do the surface, so everything's in. They're gonna do the rubberized surface, and then what that'll allow us to do is come in and do the fence and the final landscaping around it, but we had to stay out of their way while they were doing that. So that should be wrapped up in the next couple of weeks here as well.
So in all of this quote, or in these quotes, or not change orders, but what about the sidewalk? Is that in the original plan?
So.
I remember we've
it's-
gone back and forth with the sidewalk.
Yeah, so it's my understanding that the sidewalk may be deferred to a different method of installation outside of our contract.
So would that be kicked out of the original quote, that portion of it?
Yes.
Do you know how much that was?
110.
Yeah, so there was a credit back to the project of approximately $54,000. I'd have to, I do have it here, but to account for the sidewalk that we did have in the project at the time. You know, we were pricing, expanding it, bringing it all the way down. Mark saw there. So in lieu of doing it partially, as Gavin indicated, we were going to, in discussions, it was recommended that we push that down.
Okay. All right, thank you very much. Mr. Balestra.
Yeah, Jace, go back to the slide where you blew up the final, the numbers. You have the contingencies there with the delta and negative. Is that considered in the final cost? I mean, are there still contingencies that you haven't used that would still come back to the city as far as there's some fluff there? Or is this the final balance that you're predicting?
The negative 347 is the projected final balance, I guess, that would go back to the city, so to speak. But we are applying any contingencies that we have in the project or allowances towards the change management to offset that. That's why we build those into the project.
Yeah,
to
so those
account for
contingencies are being utilized in the bottom line
Yeah,
right now,
yes.
right? Okay. Not that we're going to come back and say, hey, we still have a balance that's due back to the city because we haven't utilized everything.
Yeah, it's not like there's a check that goes back, but we're just
Right.
we're not going to realize the full 34.408 million, so.
Okay, thank you.
This is Tressie.
And Jason, does this include like all of these extras, like the lighting or heat at the little Quonset hut storage thing? Does it?
Yes.
It includes that.
This includes all of the known extras or changes that have, added value that we've put into the project is all been
That's it. So you're
accommodated
not
with
ever
this.
coming back here for another change order?
So there are still some reconciliation that we're doing, but we're talking about a couple of thousand here, a couple of thousand there that will potentially change some of the numbers. I'm not saying that they're not going to change at all, but everything that is known is listed on here.
And so I know everyone, the residents, well, you hear good and bad comments. Some people call it a monstrosity. Other people love it. The people that have gone there really love the pool. It's a beautiful addition to the city. What I've heard is that the playground, an ADA playground, is right on that sidewalk, and the fence is going to go around the wires and the poles. Could it have been moved closer to the pool and not as close to the, I mean, when you were designing it, did anybody realize how close that ADA playground would be to the sidewalk or the curb? When you look at the very first slide you showed us tonight, you can see from the black iron fence all the way to the yellow umbrellas, there's a tremendous amount of concrete. So could we have, like designed it and kept, maybe done 10 feet less of concrete and moved that playground, because it is ADA, and then the fence would go right across the new sidewalk that, we're proposing here?
Chris, do you want to answer that? I mean, from my perspective, I think one of the conscious things that we were trying to do with that playground and its location, two things. One is we were trying to maximize how much pool deck we had so that there is comfortable space for lounging around the pool and we don't feel cramped. And then secondly, that playground is like a linchpin between the phase 2 portion of this project that we wanted to be shared. It's not exclusive to the aquatics, that it is, so I think those two things contributed, but Chris, if you want to add.
Yeah, good evening. I think that Jason hit on it, is we were trying to maximize the pool square footage was sort of a top priority. And then the playground came into it, but we didn't have it, it wasn't designed, right? We went through, got the GMP, did all the drawings, but we didn't know what the playground looked like. We didn't know the shape. We didn't know the fall zones, the safety zones. So at the end of the day, it was the remaining parcel, the remaining point between the sidewalk and the pool. And we integrated it with the picnic pavilion. And the designer did the eventual layout, and they maximized it as much as they could to get the equipment that you had, or you would have had to have done less to step it back, but we wanted to maximize the pool, maximize the playground apparatuses and opportunities there. So it was really trying to make the best of the site. And unfortunately, we did look at a study of the poles and trying to move them, and it was be way too expensive, and there's all kinds of reinforcing. That's why you have those tension cables.
Right.
And it was just, at the end of the day, too much. But we could have made the playground smaller, but that wasn't an objective either.
Right, I wouldn't want to see the playground
So it
smaller.
was
and-
the whole site was a constant balance between the service center, the parking, the building, the pools, and the playground, and it was a juggling act, and, compromises had to happen.
I have a question. I just don't see there being a sidewalk able to be built in front of all of that.
Yeah, they can get an
mean,
8-foot sidewalk. I
without-
walked it, I studied it, we did a full design on it. You approved a change order for it.
Right.
And it does fit.
So the electrical poles,
Yeah,
that would all
the
be moved?
wires, they have clearances, it's safe, it's a distance away, we've studied it, and we did engineering drawings that the city engineer reviewed and approved.
Okay.
Thank you.
Okay, that was just the couple of comments I heard from moms with strollers, and when they looked over the iron fence, they see this bank of concrete where you could probably have 3 rows of Chase lounges, and they said, why couldn't you have 2 rows in this spot and move that black fence back? So it was just a comment I thought at one point
I can see that
we'd
comment,
have
but what
this
you don't see
discussion.
is what's underground. And underneath there's all the piping and the sanitary storm lines, and everything is under there. So we couldn't put the playground on top of those lines. So once again, they're up against each other. So what you don't see is everything that's in the ground, and it could not have been moved any further south to get what we needed to support the pool as the primary objective. It's all underneath that paving. You can't put foundations and footers, and we had to adjust the playground around some of that as well.
Okay, that's an answer we'll give residents when they talk to us. Thank you.
Thank you.
President?
All right, Mr. DeJohn.
Mrs. Fagan, I see these numbers here. If I brought an independent auditor into the city to audit everything that was spent on this project, what do you think the final amount would be?
I'm not quite sure I understand the question of bringing an independent auditor. This is what they're projecting for the total for the project. What I have sent to council periodically, and once these are addressed tonight by vote, I will update my spreadsheet and send that out, and that's the total amount that's been approved by this council for the project. We're right in line with each other there.
So will it be this 34 million, or will it be more?
There is the cost to issue to debt that is not on this line item. It's on the overall spreadsheet, but just to compare what we had at the time of GMP number 4 in July of '22, we didn't put those costs at that time either, but that would be applied either way. That's a constant add on either end.
Correct, and as Jason mentioned just a little while ago, there may be a few small changes, moving things from contingency to the project coming up also, but that will be within their contingency and his spreadsheet.
Okay, thank you.
Are there any further questions about this project? Everybody good? All right. Thank you, gentlemen, for explaining everything to us this evening. Okay. At this time, do I have a motion to adjourn? Moved by Mrs. Sabetta, second by Mrs. Tressi. All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Thank you. This meeting has now been adjourned. Good evening. I would like to welcome everyone to the November 13th council meeting of the City of Mayfield Heights. May I have a roll call, please?
Mr. Balestria.
Present.
Mr. DeJohn.
Here.
Mr. Mano.
Here.
Mr. Monaco.
Here.
Mrs. Sabetta.
Here?
Mrs. Snyder.
Yeah, here.
Mrs.
Sorry.
Teresi.
I was listening to you.
Here.
Please stand and join me in the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Next, we will move to the approval of the minutes from our October 23rd council meeting. I hope everyone has had time to read these minutes over. Is there a motion to approve the minutes? Moved by Mr. Balestria and second by Mrs. Tressi. Are there any suggested changes, deletions to these minutes? Mrs. Tressi.
Thank you, Madam Chairman. On page 4, the second last paragraph, under Resolution 2023-100, we have Mr. Mano move for suspension of the rules, and he seconded, first and seconded. And on page 5, the last two paragraphs, we have Mrs. Mano instead of Mr. Mano.
Okay. All right, we'll make those changes.
Thank you.
Are there any other changes? Okay, all in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? And I'll abstain from that. I was absent from the meeting. Does any member of council have any correspondence or announcements? Mr. Balestria.
Thank you, Mrs. Snyder. I would just like to congratulate Mrs. Snyder, Ms. Teldon, and Mr. Minor on the recent elections to council. I, as well as the rest of the council, I'm sure, are looking forward to working with all of you, and also to congratulations to Mr. Lichten. Even though he didn't win, I give kudos to anybody that throws their hat in the ring and wants to work for public service. So congratulations to you all. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Monaco? No, you're good? Good, thank you. I would also like to take a minute and thank the voters of Mayfield Heights for coming out and voting this past election. I would like to thank each of you for the overwhelming votes that I received and the confidence that you have placed in me. I am proud to serve all of you for the next 4 years, and I will continue to be your strong voice on council. We will miss those who will be leaving us, Councilwoman Tressi and Councilman Monaco, and we will welcome the 2 newly elected officials to office in January, Mrs. Kathy Telvin and Mr. King Minor. Just wanted to say thank you. Next, we will move to reports of officers, starting with the mayor.
Thank you, Madam President. Not to beat a dead horse, congratulations to the winners of this election, Kathy and King, and to Diane for her reelection. So the Heritage Home Program, I just want to put a reminder out there to all of our older residents that this is a tremendous resource for you. Aside from equipment loan programs, Meals on Wheels, spring and fall yard cleanup, transportation program, there's a lot there for our residents. So I remind them all to go onto our website, click the CPA link, and you can get all of their programs there. And like I said, it's a tremendous resource for our residents. Also, another program I'd like to remind our residents of is the Heritage Home Program, which is a program of the Cleveland Restoration Society, and it offers low-interest loans to homeowners whose homes are 50 years or older, which is probably 80% of our homes in our city right now, maybe 75. This year, residents of our city received nearly $70,000 to repair or upgrade their homes, and you can find their information on our website also. So I just wanted to put that out there to our residents, and that concludes my report.
Thank you. Are there any questions for the mayor? Mr. Monaco.
I don't have a question for the mayor, but I have a statement. There is also another program that's along with the Heritage Loan Program. It's called the HELP Loan Program. That also applies to newer homes and also applies to rental properties. The interest rate is normally 3% of the going rates, and any resident can take advantage of that.
Thank you. All right, we will move to the Law Director, Mr. Murphy.
Thank you, Madam Chair. By way of review of pending matters considered by council, I'm happy to note that in the fence dispute on Cedar Road, that the Nunzios have put their fence into compliance with the city's ordinances, so that legislation is completed. With regard to Mr. Pado on Kingswood, the court, Lyndhurst Municipal Court, ordered the city to come in and clean up the property outside of the residence today. And it's my understanding, talking to Braden Thomas this afternoon, that that has been done. So the property has been cleaned up outside. We're still working on cleaning up the inside, but we're making progress. And finally, with regard to items, motions A and B on the agenda this evening regarding the CVS and the Popeyes, I spoke to the attorney for the developer who is here this evening, wants to make a brief presentation to council during the public portion of the meeting, and then would like council to vote on whether or not to approve the Planning Commission recommendation regarding the preliminary plan for the development this evening. That's all.
Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Murphy. Are there any questions? Mr. DeJohn.
Mr. Murphy, on the Pado property, what jurisdiction do we have for the inside of the house? Since there's no point of sale and, unless they're selling the house.
Declaring it to be a nuisance and ordering the property owner to abate the nuisance, and if he doesn't do so, then it's up to the mayor to do so. That was all in the
So how would we know
resolution.
what's going on inside his house?
We've been in
I
it.
mean, my house could be a total wreck, and, who would know that, other than people visiting me?
Council has determined it to be a nuisance and has ordered the mayor to take steps to abate that nuisance.
It still doesn't make any sense to me, but,
Well, that was the resolution adopted by council.
well, I know that. I really don't think council knew what they were voting on that time, so, but
Well.
thank you.
Okay.
Are there any further questions for Mr. Murphy? Thank you. Director of Finance, Mrs. Fagan.
Thank you. We have two major pieces of financial-related legislation on the agenda tonight. First of all, ordinance 2223-29 are changes to our municipal income tax code. The state of Ohio passed House Bill 33, which was the budget bill, and that made changes to the income tax laws. Regional Income Tax Agency, of whom we are a member, came up with proposed new wording to make sure that we're in line with that law, and those are the changes that are included in the legislation. Second is ordinance 2223-30, which is the budget for 2024. Obviously, it will be on for first reading tonight. We will have finance meetings to discuss that further. And as council goes through their binders and comes up with questions, I'd appreciate those ahead of time whenever you have them so that I can do some research and get you fleshed out answers on any of your questions. Thank you.
Perfect. Thank you. Are there any questions for Mrs. Fagan? All right, thank you. We will now move to reports of committees, committees, and boards, starting with the Building Committee, Mr. Monaco.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I have no report this evening.
Thank you. Finance and Audit Committee, Mr. DeJohn.
Thank you, Madam President. I have no report, other than there'll be an upcoming committee meeting for the budget. Thank you.
Thank you. Legislative Committee, Mrs. Sabetta.
Thank you, Madam President. No report.
Thank you. Public Works and Service, Mr. Balestrea.
Thank you, Madam Chair. No committee report, committee didn't meet, but council was copied this evening, or in their packet on the minutes.
Mike, your mic is
Oh, sorry. Council was copied on the minutes from the 10:13 meeting, and we just discussed the 2024 road program. I will be calling a meeting shortly to further talk about the 24 road program to pare down on the dollars requested by the committee to be in line with the budgeted dollars. So we will have another Public Works meeting within the next few weeks. Okay, that's my
Thank you.
report.
Are you working on that now?
Mm-hmm.
Okay. Recreation and Parks Committee, Mrs. Sabetta.
I'd like to ask Mr. Balestre a question.
Sure.
After reading the minutes,
Susan, can you talk closer?
is this better? After reading the minutes, I would like to ask you to rethink the Maplewood sidewalk extension. I was there today. The sidewalks need to be finished. That is a pedestrian walkway. It goes into a commercial park. I mean, there's children playing there. There are signs that one resident has up stating safety, slow down. It needs to be finished. They're walking in the streets. They're bringing their purchases in the street. They're riding their bikes in the street because the sidewalk ends. And it's very busy traffic, so it's open to the pedestrians. So I understand that you think there's no safety there, but there is a need for safety. I have pictures. Go and sit yourself.
I have.
Many times a day. They just stop, they take their strollers over the grassy knoll and go right across in.
I think one of the
Slater.
issues, go ahead.
Go ahead, if you had a comment, go ahead.
Well, one of the issues that we discussed over there, because everybody was talking about it, was there's that wall, you know, the kind of, it's hard to see. So they're afraid that if the sidewalk goes to the very end, the people will walk right out into that, because it's the sidewalk that ends right into the road. There's no crosswalk over there. So I know that whole area, I believe the chief was going to address that area. I think we talked about that in an email, about looking at that whole area, because it is dangerous over there. Maybe the configuration of stop signs, something has to happen, because it's a very busy corner.
Yes, it needs sidewalks, it needs crosswalks.
Right.
It doesn't have to go directly up to the wall. I'm sure a professional would figure it out. I know what you're saying. It can cross there.
Right.
And then the other sidewalk on the other side of the street can go in. But even crossing into, Costco, it needs a crosswalk there.
Mr. Balistreo?
No, we brought it up at the committee meeting, and we had service department there as well. And it was all agreed that the sidewalk on the north side of Maplewood comes up to that wall. And people would exit from behind the wall out into the street. You'd also have to move that stop sign back to the wall, and we know how people stop. They don't stop at the stop sign. If they were to just go past the stop sign, if you had it in line with that wall, they're going to run right into the pedestrian traffic. The other thing is, if you put that walk there, you're going to have to put an ADA ramp down there, and what you're telling people, you can exit onto the street, but across the street is the island. It doesn't empty into the parking lot per se. So there's nothing to put a crosswalk to. On the south side, we didn't discuss that. That's somebody's public property at the time. But on the north side, it was decided it would be more of a safety hazard to put a walk there and force people to use it or tell people it's okay to use it, when really it's not. And I think it's unsafe. So that's why the committee as a whole, with input from safety as well as our service department, agreed
And our
that it was
engineer.
not going to be a safe investment for the city to put something there.
Mrs. Tressi? Mrs. Tressi?
Thank you, Madam Chairman. Also, our engineer was, of course, in the meeting and stated that it would be a safety hazard as well with the sidewalk on that side, on both sides. Without a crosswalk and without a sidewalk on the opposite side, which is Costco's property, there's a curb. There's
an
no s-
island, yeah.
An island, there's no sidewalk there. So our engineer actually thought it was a bad idea as well. So we had the service department, the engineer, and the committee that discussed this.
I understand that. I read the minutes, and I still believe there's something that should be done. It shouldn't be left the way it is. It shouldn't be a dead end.
Madam Chair.
Okay.
the way
if I
it is.
could.
Mayor? Mhm.
It sounds like it's something we need to take a closer look at. Maybe we change that intersection. Maybe we do something different there. Put a true crosswalk there with lights or, flashing lights like we have on Marcel. Maybe something like that. But, it's something we got to look into more.
I
Right.
think so.
But just to extend the sidewalk
Right,
currently,
right.
it's a safety hazard. And the
And
committee
there's a stop
right now-
sign there, which
would have to be moved.
Right, which would help us, I think, with the traffic. So there's probably a way to maybe reconfigure it to make it safer.
And my second question,
Mr. DeJohn?
No, go ahead.
I'm still trying to
Yeah, go ahead.
have the floor
Mrs.
here.
Sabetta?
My second question is, I brought this up many times, is the overpasses. If you'd please talk about some beautification for the overpass, both of them, Ridgeberry and Lander.
I'll bring it up again. We brought it up at the last year's meeting, but I'm not sure if anything was completed on that. And I'll talk to Service as well.
Thank you.
So many cities have like welcome to their city over the overpass, everywhere throughout Ohio. Would be nice if we could do that
Like
sometime
you
in
ever
our
see
city.
Ashlands?
Yeah,
It never happened.
yeah. Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you, Mrs. Sabetta. Mr. DeJohn?
Thank you, Madam President. I don't know if I should ask Mr. Balestria this, but we did approve a request for proposal for an engineering services, and I don't know, I haven't heard anything whether that's gone out or not. Do we know?
Mr. Murphy? Mr. Murphy?
The solicitation has been completed, and it's my understanding it'll be sent out this week.
Thank you.
Okay. Any other questions? All right, moving to Recreation and Parks, Mr. Mano.
Thank you, Madam Chairman. The holiday lighting ceremony will be held on Wednesday, November the 29th, from 6 to 8 p.m. in the fire base. Enjoy a cup of hot cocoa, grab a sweet, and take pictures with Santa and Mrs. Claus. Don't miss Santa and Mayor DeSico as they count down to the lighting up of City Hall. An evening with Santa will be...
Santa, is that what you're doing?
An evening with Santa will be held on Friday, December the 8th at the Aquatic and Community Center starting at 6 p.m. Enjoy a special visit with Santa and Mrs. Claus and take your family pictures. Kids can take a ride on the Santa train too, and there's so much more to do. Recommended for children ages 3 to 9 years. The cost is $10 for kids and $8 for adults. For more information on these events, visit the website or call 440-442-2627. That's my report.
Thank you, Mr. Mano. Are there any questions? Okay. Moving to Safety and Transportation, Mrs. Tressi.
Thank you, Madam Chairman. I have no report this evening.
Thank you. Board of Zoning Appeals, Mrs. Sabetta.
Thank you, Madam President. The Board of Zoning Appeals will meet tomorrow here in council chambers at 7 p.m. Thank you.
Thank you. Planning Commission, Mr. Balestria.
Thank you, Madam Chair. No report. The Planning Commission did not have an agenda, and I know there was two ordinances that were passed to the Planning Commission with regards to political signs. So we're just waiting for those to get put on the agenda. When those are on the agenda, then we'll schedule a meeting. I'm probably waiting for some other things to be placed on the agenda as well.
Okay. Great, thank you. We will now proceed to the public portion of the meeting. Pursuant to City Code, each person will be allotted 5 minutes to speak, with a maximum of 30 minutes allotted for the entire public portion. If you are here in connection with an agenda item, this is your opportunity to address council. However, please note that this is not an opportunity for debate or slighted comments. If you would like to be heard this evening, please fill out a form located on the table at the public entrance. During the public portion, I will call each person wishing to speak to the podium. Please state your name and address for the record and speak clearly into the microphone. It is now 7:20, and I will open up the public portion. I'm going to call up Mr. Anand Kopathi.
Hi, my name is Anand Kotapelli, and I'm representing my mother, who's the owner of Lakshmi Plaza, which is the grocery store that's behind where that CVS is currently located. We just wanted to voice some of our concerns going forward with the new project that might be coming up. So we began this business less than 2 years ago. At the
Mon,
current location.
Excuse me, could you state your address, please, for the record?
Yes. My address is 3236 Stonewall Street, Avon, Ohio, 44011.
Thank you.
Yep. So we began this business less than 2 years ago at the current location that we're at. And we are just establishing like our business name and location. And at the moment, we're currently making the expenses for our store. However, we have not seen any profit or loss at the moment. So with that being said, a majority of our customers come into our store while they pass along on Mayfield Road. This could be pedestrians or someone that's just driving by and they spot our store and say, hey, oh, that looks cool. So they end up coming into our store and browsing some of our collection and that's kind of how we make our business run at the moment. And at the store, we rely a lot more than just on like the Indian population within Mayfield and the Mayfield community. We rely on like I said, like the Americans, the Asians, and as well as the African community that kind of just spot us as they go by. So we believe that with the new like restaurants that are coming up in the place of that CVS, we believe that that infrastructure being directly built in front of our business will cause us to incur a lot more losses, as well as it really takes away the visibility of our store. So I just wanted to voice that concern going forward with this project that's coming up and how it'll have a huge negative impact on our business. Thank you.
Thank you. I would like to call up Mr. Sokoloff.
Hi, I'm Ivan Sokoloff. I'm the
Please
principal.
state your address, please.
I'm sorry, 23400 Ranch Road, Beechwood, Ohio.
Thank you.
I'm Ivan Sokoloff. I'm the principal owner of the Mayfield Ridge Plaza. I don't want to speak against anything, but I think I want to speak against the proposal of the current Popeyes as it is being presented. I just came in, I was out of state, and so but I did take the opportunity to get a shot. Oh, can I get a?
You can place it right there.
He's the owner of this building in the back.
She's going to go ahead and take care of that for you.
Madam President, Excuse me, can we get the volume turned up for these mics? Because I'm having a hard time hearing tonight.
If you can pull the mic closer to your mouth when you're speaking, that'd be great. And turn it on. Hit the button. Now it's on. Thank you.
Okay.
Should we put the lights down?
Okay, I didn't know if she had it.
So you could turn it so that we can zoom in on it.
I'm sorry. This is actually what I want you to see. This is a aerial of the a successful center that has a front line of stores and a back line of stores. This is Chagrin Falls. And you'll notice that none of the stores have trash containers up at the front aisle. We, as the owners of the plaza, are opposed to the layout and the presentation of the stores and would ask that this be deferred until it can in fact be negotiated. Our attorney attempted to get a meeting with the attorney for the developer, but was turned down. He, of course, and I don't mean of course, but he in fact is presently in Ireland, and it would be difficult for him to be here personally. This plaza that I'm showing here, the aerial, represents a successful development of this sort. But you'll notice that none of the entrances off of the main streets, either off of, I think it's, I don't know the name of this, but the main street running down Chagrin Falls and Route 302, 303, there is no trash being picked up off of those streets. When I say that, I mean off of, from the shopping center. This shopping center is, and this development is proposing a trash container right at the entrance to the center. And any trash that's picked up would require a dump truck to pull in and then back up into the main traffic generator into the center. We have suggested to them that some other arrangement be made, and the developer basically rejected it because I believe he thinks he has this deal in the bag. We will not allow that to go on that way, and we would like to have the opportunity to negotiate through and come up with an alternative to the location of the trash. There are a few other details. We did propose a layout that did not include as much of an intrusion of this center into the existing center.
Mr. Sokoloff, we hit 5 minutes. I just need a member of council to motion to extend. Second by Mr. Ballestero. Okay, go ahead. You can continue.
This demonstrates that we are not opposed to the idea of having an additional user at the front of the center, but I believe it does represent that we want a clean shopping center, and we want one that does not generate additional risk to either pedestrians or anybody else. And to put in a trash container at the front of the shopping center and say, well, it has to be there because of the inclement weather, which was the response to the attorney when we raised it with him, it doesn't hold water. So we would ask that this council, at least tonight, not vote on this matter, or if they do vote on this matter, they turn it down. I personally have been the principal owner of that shopping center. Excuse me. I just came off of a plane, so I'm, because Rob couldn't be here, I came in. I request that the council does not approve this and give us an opportunity to continue negotiating and come up with a satisfactory arrangement that could in fact replicate the success that Chagrin Falls has had with their shopping center. And if you go out there, and I was there tonight, at their shopping center, there are no trash containers from anywhere from the main streets back or from the 303 side off. There happens to be a shopping center in a very dark corner, a trash enclosure on a dark corner that probably very few people use. The second part of it, I do think that if in fact this goes forward, I would like to have the latitude, with the council's approval, of having additional signage for those merchants that are in the back. I don't quite know how, it's either in the size or the location or anything of that sort that would give them the exposure they need to be successful to in their location. And everybody would be extremely benefited by the additional negotiations and the product that would be presented here to council. Again, I ask, the very least, is that this matter not be voted on tonight and allow us to continue negotiating. I want you to know that I have been in this business probably more years than most of the people in this room, and I have never, ever taken an issue to litigation. But I believe that for the sake of not creating another disaster, and this disaster happens to be the former shopping center across the street where they ended up having to remove the stores because the stores were vacant for all those years. And they did have access on both sides. They had access off of Mayfield Road, but nobody gave consideration to, and I think I'm very proud of the council that they put together this design criteria. And I'm not against the design criteria, but I think that you have to recognize the special needs of the existing tenants that are there and who, in this instance, are relatively new. And I would ask that this matter be tabled until such time as we can, in fact, put together a package that's in the best interests of the entire shopping center and perhaps even the best interest, and its merchants, and the best interest of this overall community. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Mr. Sokoloff. I just wanted to remind you that this is a preliminary this evening.
It doesn't make any difference. They feel it's strong. If we got behind it, it could move very quickly. Okay. And without it getting behind it, it's just going to drag it out. So the idea of preliminary doesn't hold. For me, it just makes it quicker, and it doesn't allow us to really
Work on
have
it,
the
right.
opportunity to do what we did with Manners, when Manners wanted to replace their place with a, I don't know if you know, if everybody
Yes.
knows who Manners was,
Yeah.
but we negotiated. They needed some extra elbow room. We needed some extra elbow room. And again, most people didn't even know there was two different owners there because we were able to work it through just through the process of getting it, sitting down and working on it. We have not had that same courtesy from this current developer, and I ask therefore that council not, by the way, my attorney actually tried to get a little bit of time, but he in fact was rejected in the worst way. He didn't even get a response to his request.
Okay. Thank you.
Thank you.
I will now call Mr. Ben Chonacki. Please state your name and address for the record.
Sorry, Madam President.
That's
Ben,
okay.
Ben Chinaki, 1375 East 9th Street, 10th floor, Cleveland, Ohio.
Thank you.
I had sent some PowerPoint slides. Is there I have a laptop I could plug in so that we can see it on there? Is that? Beautiful, okay. I think I've got it.
If I could, while he's setting up, it does look like we're having some problems with the local feed and the local cable channel. So if you hear anything on that, the YouTube is recording, so we'll upload that in the morning, so that will be available in the morning. They're working on getting those fixed, and our IT person is aware of that and is trying to make those repairs.
Okay, thank you.
Madam Chairman.
Mrs. Tracy?
Is this the same part that we've needed for the last 3 meetings?
They thought they had it, they thought they had everything working, but there's so much of it that is very sensitive to, we're trying to plug into older equipment, is my understanding, and I am not an IT person, so I may be misstating that. But it is recording, and it will be uploaded in the morning.
May I?
Yeah, sure.
Thank you,
can
Madam
start.
President.
Thank you.
It's good to see everyone again. I was here on October 9th at your meeting. You might recall that it was for the same agenda item. Myself and Rob Zimmerman, counsel for Mr. Sokolov, we appeared before you and sent you some lengthy correspondence in advance, essentially setting out some disagreements, and we advised counsel at that time. It was our intention to try to work cooperatively to hear out the neighbors' concerns and hopefully address them and come to you when we were ready with a plan. I'm here with 2 engineers and an architect working on behalf of the Landis Group, the developer who's planning to move through this development project. After weeks of multiple meetings and a considerable amount of effort in hearing out the objections and considering the concerns and comments made, we reached a conclusion that the project that we put to Planning Commission, which they approved on October 2nd, was the best and most appropriate project for this site. We've heard their concerns, and we've set forth in correspondence by email to the attorneys representing them why we thought that some of their proposed comments made either the site that they were proposing or the revisions they were proposing unworkable. We believe that this is the best use of the site. It's consistent with your code, and it furthers the long-term objectives of your commercial design corridor manual. I did hear a couple of comments with respect to concerns or pedestrian traffic and things of that nature, and so we'll address those as the meeting, or as I walk you through those slides. This is the current site. Let me make sure I can get my slides to move in the right order here. I apologize. This is a site as it is currently situated. You'll see that what you have is a building and an empty parking lot. Your code does not, and we think there's better uses for that site than an empty parking lot. And so our proposed plan, which your Planning Commission approved, turns this into this. What we have is a redevelopment of the CVS property, and then right in the location where there is a lot of empty parking spaces, a roughly 2,000-foot Popeyes. You'll note that the Popeyes has 2 drive-through aisles, an open corridor in the middle, and essentially it's set forth closer to the road than the CVS spot. The reason we've set it that way is, one, because your commercial corridor contemplates that, but also because that ensures maximum visibility to the site. We commissioned a sightline study to demonstrate that visibility will be maintained throughout the site. So what you have in front of you and what you'll see are sight lines depicting the visibility of the back site from the road, and the Popeyes does not infringe upon that. So we've considered and accounted for that. Moving the Popeyes further to the rear or closer to the eastern portion will compromise our ability to ensure what Popeyes needs, which is 2 lanes of drive-through. You've got to have 2 lanes of drive-through, otherwise there's a possibility you're going to have a traffic problem. So we've considered many of the complaints that we're hearing, and in designing this project, what we've done is take into consideration both the comments of your ABR and your Planning Commission and created a walkable, pedestrian-friendly site that does allow for both pedestrian walkways internally within the site and from the properties not owned by the developer here. So you see you've got well-maintained tree lawns, a very nice sitting area, several sitting areas in fact. And so what we think is this, and this is just a very, an excellent development for the site. You'll see here on this site, there is a kind of a hitched area to the eastern portion of the Popeyes. That is the enclosed brick structure where the garage or the garbage will be housed. We think this is the best location for it. It's consistent with what your code authorizes. It's not going to be visible. It's not going to create an odor. It's going to be handled appropriately. Nobody wants, especially not Popeyes, wants anything offensive coming from the site. So we don't believe this is an issue. We think it's something that's been adequately addressed, and it's not going to be any problem to anyone. Just for reference, a couple of existing and proposed renderings that show what you currently have on site and what we expect you'll see when it's all said and done. No, there is some visibility to the rear. You can see the buildings, although those are a little bit tight to see because we don't have great visibility from the, I mean visibility in the size of the pictures. These are some more site renderings that show you exactly what we're dealing with. You'll note here this open area that the Planning Commission wanted and your design code encourages, open space. So to address the concerns regarding pedestrian walkability, we think that the number of people who are going to be visiting our property and the people who are going to be walking the property are going to increase the number of people who are going to be visiting the neighboring property. We think it's a win for them as much as it is a win for us. This site gives you a better depiction of the enclosed area where the garbage is going to be housed. I don't anticipate garbage trucks coming all hours of the day, every day, and causing traffic problems. One of the other accommodations that we've proposed, in addition to paving our driveway, paving the entire parking lot, and adding additional lighting, is to accommodate and construct at our own expense
Mr.
a new sign.
Choniaki, we've hit 5 minutes. Can I have a motion from council? Moved by Mrs. Tressi, second by Mr. Balistreo. You can continue.
Thank you very much. One of the, I'll be brief. The last accommodation that we've proposed, in addition to lighting, paving, and a couple other improvements, is we've proposed to erect at our own expense a new sign that's illuminated and very visible with the Dollar General site and any other tenants on the property. That would be something that we think, paired with the existing visibility and the existing traffic or increase in traffic that will come to site, will be a benefit to all. So in light of all of that, we're respectfully asking that this council grant preliminary plan approval for items 10A and 10B on the agenda. That is the proposed redevelopment of the of the CVS site and the proposed construction of the Popeyes site. Our team is here, and when the motion comes, we're certainly available to answer any questions if council may have them. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Is Mr. We talk open or keep it still open?
I'll make
Yeah,
a
that's
motion
fine.
for that. I'd like to see where it is.
Moved by Mr. DeJohn to let Mr. Sokoloff talk again.
You want to speak again?
Do you want
Is
to
that what you
see
wanna do, Mr.
the garbage?
He was going to show us where the,
No, I just want to point out. Can I see the side of the development?
Right there.
It's going to take a moment to load, sir.
No, the other one that showed it face on.
This one?
No, there's another one. Show, you, go ahead. No, you, go ahead. You're not showing the one shot? Here it is. Right over, this one that shows the, you see the driveway that leads to it. What that is the trash driver picks up, drives into that, picks up the trash, and then backs back up into the main driveway coming in. Not only is it offensive, but it's really dangerous. They don't show that except in this one exposure. And it's, we proposed perhaps a couple, and if a shopping center the size of Chagrin Falls can do without trash containers within probably 25 or 30 feet of the main street, I suggest that we can do without a trash container right at the driveway entrance. Probably the main, it's quite interesting because the proposed new signage that is being proposed is right next to that. It's right in front of it. Would you want to be entering a shopping center, even would that be either safe or smart to work against yourself? We've done a survey of many of the Popeyes that are located in this area. We've looked across the street of us, and the gas station, their container, their trash is not up front at the front edge. Theirs is in the back corner. The same is true with the Canes. Their container is in the back. And I apologize because the letter that you referred to said it's not necessary because we're in a terrible weather condition up here in northeast Ohio. So our people can't deal with having to take their trash somewhere else other than right next to the kitchen or wherever that is. I find that to be offensive, and I think that the community will. And not everybody contains, again, I've been in this business long enough to know, not everybody maintains their trash as carefully as they should. And you have to really look beyond, just like CVS was there 20 years and out, somebody else might not be there. I don't know how long their term is, but they only might be there for that one term, or they might sublease it to somebody else, and then you have somebody who might not take care of it as well. I again ask that this motion be.
Okay, Mr. Sokoloff, we heard you earlier.
I'm sorry.
So thank you. All right, thank you, Mr. Chonacki. Were you done?
Would you indulge me with a brief response, or it was not appropriate?
Go ahead.
Briefly, I just, your commercial design corridor manual contemplates a pedestrian-friendly site. If we were to move the garbage receptacles somewhere else on the site, I would submit that it's inconsistent with your design manual. I would also submit that in inclement weather, it would not be the safest thing to have Popeyes walking in a frozen or icy or snowbanked parking lot when we can accommodate the same end result safely. Thank you.
Thank you. Is there anyone else here this evening that would like to be heard? Mrs. Augustine. Yeah.
Thank you. I just wanted to come up and clarify a few points. I wanted to let you know that the Healthcare Committee did vote unanimously on this proposal for the renewals. I think there are two separate issues going on, the union negotiations and the healthcare, and they're separate, and I don't know what we can do to coordinate the timing, but right now, there's nothing we can do about it. Thirdly, there was a question about the HRA, and I just wanted to say that in 2018, the unions did negotiate to eliminate the HSA. The HSA, the employees, if they don't use the money, they keep it. And it rolls forward, and you can use it for IRS-eligible medical expenses. They went to the HRA because the city asked for that, and the city gets the money back. Whatever's not used, the city gets back. And in 2022, 30% was returned to the city of what was funded. So those are I just wanted to give you those points. Thank you.
Thank you, Mrs. Augustine. Would anyone else like to be heard this evening? Okay, thank you. I will close the public portion. We will move to resolutions, and I will turn this over to Council President Pro Tem, Mrs. Tracy.
Resolution 2023-101, Mr. Murphy.
Thank you, Madam Acting Chair. Resolution 2023-101, resolution accepting a quotation for medical and prescription group health insurance from Medical Mutual of Ohio through the Ohio Government Benefit Cooperative, OGBC, and declaring an emergency. First reading.
Is there a motion to suspend the rules?
Moved.
Moved by Mr. Mano, seconded by Mr. Balestrea. Roll call on the motion to suspend.
Mr. Mano.
Yes.
Mr. Balestrea.
Yes.
Mr. DeJohn.
Yes.
Mrs. Sabetta.
Yes.
Mrs. Snyder.
Abstain?
Mr. Monaco.
Yes.
Mrs. Teresi.
Yes. This motion has carried. Is there a motion to approve?
Moved.
Moved by Mr. Monaco, seconded by Mr. Mano. We've had discussion and heard from Mrs. Augustine a couple times. Is there anything else that any council would like to add or question? Seeing none, we'll do a roll call on the motion to approve.
Mr. DeJohn.
Yes.
Mr. Monaco.
Yes.
Mrs. Snyder.
Abstain?
Mr. Balestrea.
Yes.
Mr. Mano.
Yes.
Mrs. Sabetta.
Yes.
Mrs. Teresi.
Yes. The motion has been carried. We'll move on to Resolution 2023-102. Mr. Murphy.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Resolution 2023-102, a resolution accepting a quotation for dental insurance from Delta Dental and declaring an emergency. First reading.
Is there a motion to suspend the rules?
Moved.
Moved by Mrs. Sabetta.
Second.
Second by Mr. Balestrea. Roll call on the motion to suspend.
Mrs. Snyder.
Abstain?
Mrs. Sabetta.
Yes.
Mr. Monaco.
Yes.
Mr. Mano.
Yes.
Mr. DeJohn.
Yes.
Mr. Balestrea.
Yes.
Mrs. Teresi.
Yes. Is there a motion to approve?
Moved.
Moved by Mr. Mano,
Second.
second by Mr. Balestrea. Questions? Discussion? Again, we've heard from Mrs. Augustine 2 times. Anything else we've missed? Seeing nothing, we'll move on to a roll call on the motion to approve.
Mr. Balestria.
Yes.
Mrs. Snyder. Mrs. Sabetta.
Yes.
Mr. DeJohn.
Yes.
Mr. Monaco.
Yes.
Mr. Mano.
Yes.
Mrs. Teresi.
Yes, Resolution 2023-102 has been approved. We'll move on to Resolution 2023-103. Mr. Murphy.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Resolution 2023-103, a resolution accepting a quotation for vision insurance from iMed Vision Insurance and declaring an emergency. First reading.
Is there a motion to suspend the rules? Moved by Mr. Monaco,
Second.
seconded by Mrs. Sabetta. Roll call on the motion to suspend.
Mr. Monaco.
Yes.
Mr. DeJohn.
Yes.
Mr. Mano.
Yes.
Mr. Balestria.
Yes.
Mrs. Sabetta.
Yes.
Mrs. Snyder.
Abstain?
Mrs. Teresi.
Yes. Is there a motion to approve?
Moved.
Second.
Moved by Mr. Mano, seconded by Mr. Balestria. Again, we've heard from Mrs. Augustine 2 times. She's answered our questions. Is there any other discussion or questions? Seeing none, we'll move on to roll call on the motion to approve.
Mrs. Sabetta.
Yes.
Mr. Mano.
Yes.
Mr. Balestria.
Yes.
Mrs. Snyder.
Abstain?
Mr. Monaco.
Yes.
Mr. DeJohn.
Yes.
Mrs. Teresi.
Yes. This resolution has been adopted. We'll now move back to Council President Snyder.
Thank you, Mrs. Teresi. Resolution number 2023-104, Mr. Murphy.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Resolution 2023-104, a resolution awarding a contract to VL Chapman Electric, Inc. to install a new generator at City Hall in accordance with the bid specifications and declaring an emergency. First reading.
Is there a motion to suspend the rules?
Move.
Moved by Mr. Balestria, second by Mr. Mano. Roll call on the motion to suspend.
Mr. Mano.
Yes.
Mr. Balestria.
Yes.
Mr. DeJohn.
Yes.
Mrs. Sabetta.
Yes.
Mrs. Teresi.
Yes.
Mr. Monaco.
Yes.
Mrs. Snyder.
Yes. Is there a motion to approve?
Move.
Moved by Mrs. Teresi, second by Mr. Mano. The city engineer has recommended this company as they were the lowest and best bid for the project. The cost to install a new generator at City Hall would be $104,980.38. Is there any questions or comments from council? We all received an email and paperwork from GPD Group. So, Mr. Monaco?
Thank you, Madam Chair. Question that I have, this is just for electrical. Did we get any quotes for the plumbing works also for the gas line?
Mr. Brunello, did you want to answer that, please?
The existing gas line is fine. It's the size, so they don't have to change anything is regarding the gas.
Okay.
The regulator, everything's suited and fit for the new unit that's coming.
So this new gas line is adequate to supply the fuel to the larger equipment that you're going to have?
Correct.
Thank you.
Yep. No problem.
Thank you. Thank you. Any further questions? Roll call on the motion to approve.
Mr. DeJohn.
Yes.
Mr. Monaco.
Yes.
Mrs. Teresi.
Yes.
Mr. Balestria.
Yes.
Mr. Mano.
Yes.
Mrs. Sabetta.
Yes.
Mrs. Snyder.
Yes, this motion has been approved. Resolution number 2023-105, Mr. Murphy.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Resolution 2023-105, a resolution authorizing and approving change management numbers 07, 12, 25, 69, 78, 80, 86, 90, 94, 95, 96, 100, 110, 111, and other CMs, change managements, to the agreement with the Albert M. Higley Company for the construction of the Mayfield Heights Aquatic Center and the Community Center, and declaring an emergency. First reading.
Is there a motion to suspend the rules?
Moved.
Moved by Mr. Mano,
Second.
second by Mrs. Sabetta. Roll call on the motion to suspend.
Mrs. Teresi.
Yes.
Mrs. Sabetta.
Yes.
Mr. Monaco.
Yes.
Mr. Mano.
Yes.
Mr. DeJohn.
Yes.
Mr. Balestria.
Yes.
Mrs. Snyder.
Yes. Is there a motion to approve?
Move.
Moved by Mr. Belstrea and second by Mrs. Sabetta. This evening, we had a committee of the whole meeting to discuss these change orders to the aquatic project. The total cost of these changes is a little over $352,000. The total cost of the project at this point is still under the estimated amount. Does any member of council have any further questions or comments from the committee of the whole meeting? Mr. Belstrea.
Maybe it's a typo on the resolution itself. Fifth paragraph down, it says the dollar amount is printed out, $339,777. But in parenthetical, it's $352,264. So what is the proper number there, I guess?
Hold on one second.
You see that?
I see it. It's obviously a typo.
Right. I just want to make sure.
352 and 352. Oh, hold on, written out.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's in the backup somewhere.
How is this it?
Maybe. That's a lot of backup, though.
If I may.
On this one. Mrs. Fagan.
Also, what that number does not include is earlier today, after everything went out to council, they did give us information on change management 25, which was a credit. So if we take that into consideration, the net effect is $208,413.62. And I did confirm that number with Mr. Nolde earlier today. And I did send council an email with all of that information when he sent that over.
So in other words, the resolution must be changed to accommodate that.
Yes, to change the credit amount.
And I would suggest it be kept on first reading and get the proper numbers from GPD for the next meeting. Is that agreed? Leave it on first reading?
Absolutely.
Agreed.
Okay. It's on
This
first reading.
resolution has been placed on first reading. We will now move to ordinances, beginning with ordinance 2023-22. Mr. Murphy.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Ordinance 2023-22, an ordinance amending Chapter 1191 of the codified ordinances of the city titled Signs by amending Section 1191.02 regarding political signs and declaring an emergency. Third reading.
Is there a motion to approve?
This has been referred to Planning Commission by ordinance. It must be reviewed by Planning Commission first, so it's should be
Place that-
tabled. There should
place
be a
that third
motion to
reading.
table.
Need a motion to table this ordinance?
Move.
Moved by Mr. DeJohn, second by Mrs. Sabetta. Do we need a roll call?
Mr. Monaco.
Yes.
Mr. DeJohn.
Yes.
Mr. Mano.
Yes.
Mr. Balestrea.
Yes.
Mrs. Sabetta.
Yes.
Mrs. Teresi.
Yes.
Mrs. Snyder.
Yes. Ordinance 2023-22 has now been tabled. We will move to, and 2023-27 as well.
Yes, I'll read it
You did?
because
Okay.
that can be on second reading. Ordinance number 2023-27, an ordinance amending Section 1191.02 of the codified ordinances of the city titled Permitted Signs and declaring an emergency. Second reading, and
This will stay on second reading.
will stay on second reading.
Okay. Ordinance number 2023-29. Mr. Murphy.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Ordinance 2023-29, an ordinance amending Chapter 794 of the codified ordinances of the City of Mayfield Heights regarding municipal income tax and declaring an emergency. First reading.
Is there a motion to suspend the rules?
Move.
Moved by Mr. DeJohn, second by Mr. Mano. Roll call on the motion to suspend.
Mrs. Sabetta.
Yes.
Mr. Mano.
Yes.
Mr. Balestrea.
Yes.
Mrs. Teresi.
Yes.
Mr. Monaco.
Yes.
Mr. DeJohn.
Yes.
Mrs. Snyder.
Yes. Is there a motion to approve?
Move.
Moved by Mrs. Tressi, second by Mr. Belstrea. We heard from Mrs. Fagan this evening how they changed the House Bill 33 pertaining to the income tax laws. Does anybody have any comments or questions further for Mrs. Fagan? Mr. Belstrea.
Just one. I've tried to read it. It's chapter 794. But I guess the bottom line is, what is it going to affect us as a city, do you think, bottom line, with folks,
I don't think it
working
will.
from home?
I don't think it'll have any major effects.
Okay.
One of the changes is codifying the under 16 doesn't have to pay taxes, which we were already doing, things like that. So it's just a little bit of house cleaning and making sure we're in agreement.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you. Any further questions or comments? Roll call on the motion to approve.
Mr. Mano.
Yes.
Mr. Balestrea.
Yes.
Mr. DeJohn.
Yes.
Mrs. Sabetta.
Yes.
Mrs. Teresi.
Yes.
Mr. Monaco.
Yes.
Mrs. Snyder.
Yes. Ordinance 2023-29 has been approved. We will now move to ordinance number 2023-30. Mr. Murphy.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Ordinance number 2023-30, an ordinance making appropriations for current expenses and other expenditures of the City of Mayfield Heights, State of Ohio during the fiscal year ending December 31, 2024, and declaring an emergency. First reading.
So we are going to keep this on first reading as there is a finance meeting scheduled to go over our budget for next year. Mr. Murphy.
Just by point of clarification, Mr. Balestrea questioned Resolution 2023-105, and the two numbers, one was 352,000, one was 339,000. That was submitted by the engineer, and I'm not sure whether or not that contains the credit that was talked about this afternoon.
Right.
So anyway, there's some confusion on the part of the engineer as to exactly what the ad is, so it's a good thing then that that has been placed on first reading. And that'll be clarified for the next meeting.
Perfect. Thank you.
Madam President?
Mr. DeJohn.
Yes, we'd like to have that meeting on Monday night if Mrs. Lloyd can set that up. So we're looking at Monday night at 5:30, so everyone knows. Unless you can make it at 5, Mrs. Snyder. Fine.
It's fine. So I'm not the chair, so you can make it a 5.
Okay, I just want you to be there. So.
Thank you.
Thank you.
All right. We will now move to motions, beginning with motion A. Mr. Murphy.
Yes, a motion to approve the preliminary site plan for a new 1,995 square foot single-story building for Popeyes Restaurant located at 5901 Mayfield Road.
Is there a motion to approve?
Move.
Moved by Mr. Belstrea. Second.
Second.
Second by Mrs. Sabetta. You've heard this evening during the public portion, both parties speak about this preliminary site plan. There was a request from Mr. Sokoloff to put this on hold so that he can discuss further with the other group, Mr. What? Sorry. I'm sorry, with Mr. Chernacki as to moving the garbage area. So I don't know if this council wants to give him that opportunity to, I know that I'm seeing all these hands. If we want to give him that opportunity to do that, so that's kind of where we're at right now. Mr. DeJohn.
Thank you, Madam President. Yes, I'd like to do that, but I'd also like to ask the question, why is this facility where it's being planned instead of going across the street to the new mainland development or possibly somewhere else in the city where there's a vacant store? Why does it have to be in this shopping plaza? Does anyone know? Can anyone answer that question? I don't know if it was, I don't believe it was asked at the Planning Commission, but I really don't like the place where this is going to block those stores in the back. There's plenty of other places. Verizon's moving out. There's plenty of space in the mainland development. Why does it have to go there? And with, now, with the pointing out where this garbage bin is, it's really not an appropriate place for it.
Madam Chair, if I could.
Mayor?
Oh,
Go ahead, Mayor.
so these things were discussed at the original planning meeting. The developer chose his property to put that building there. So that is not what council votes on. That's not up to the council to tell somebody how they should develop their property as long as it's within our ordinances and our regulations. I think this is better off going back to planning, council voting on it. It's just a preliminary. I think voting yes on the preliminary and it going back to council will facilitate the two parties getting together, because at the next meeting of planning, which would be for the final, some kind of resolution is going to be had. I don't think what type of restaurant is going in there should be considered by council. I think it's only what the original preliminary is based on. And if you drive it yourself, the driveway to the east, which is next to the body shop, and the main driveway, which would be between the old CVS building and the new building, I think the sight lines are fine. If you drive down there, my wife and I she wanted to go to Dollar General. She wanted to get some stuff there. And as we came up, you look down that driveway, you could see the back building perfectly. And you could see it from the other driveway too. So I don't think sight lines are a matter of concern. But the garbage would also be reviewed by our engineer and our safety forces. So we'll just make sure that, not our safety forces, the traffic engineer. So I think voting yes on just a preliminary, which means, that they're going to have to go back, and I think it facilitates a conversation that they will have to have. And at the next meeting, it's not going to be, even if planning votes yes on a final and council disagrees, you could vote it down. But I think we're better off moving ahead with the preliminary, having the two parties come together, seeing what kind of compromises we can make, seeing what planning commission's opinion is of what they come up with for their final, and then having council vote on it. That's just my opinion.
Mr. Balestria.
Just to dovetail on what the mayor said, just because we bring something to you, just because we bring something to you from Planning Commission doesn't mean that that's a final approval of what Planning Commission has in its mindset. It's to bring it to you folks to see a preliminary plan on paper. Now, between preliminary and final, there's a lot of details that have to be worked out, whether they be variance issues, engineering issues. To be perfectly honest with you, I didn't realize there was two owners to this property, and probably a lot of you didn't realize there was two owners to this property. There's a driveway next to the Gerber place. Who owns that? Is that an easement, or is that somebody else's driveway? Somebody has to have ownership of that, or there has to be an easement. That has to be ironed out. To be perfectly honest with you, I'm not in favor of the way the building is set, because you do have trash coming out right onto to Mayfield Road. I'd be more inclined to say I would like to see it turned like we did with Krispy Kreme. And we worked very intensely to turn that building, as you know, and we worked very intensely to get different designs for what Mr. Otino had proposed with Mayland. So just because we're voting, if we vote yes on this is not in any way state that, we're all in agreement that this is the way the plan should go, because there's a lot of things that need to be ironed out between preliminary and final. But this gives you a site, and you're able to hear the different views. We've allowed the sides to talk about it, try to work things out, because that's not what we decide as a planning commission. We don't decide, issues between the two parties. They have to iron those out before they come back to us, and all those details have to be worked out. So,
Mike, I have a question. When, in the planning commission, was there any recommendations to change the way the building was positioned?
no, not recommendations, no. But between seeing the initial and the final, I mean, you get time to look at things, you get some input from other sources, and I think the site could be reworked. That's just my opinion. The mayor sits on the planning commission, he may have a different opinion as well as the other commissioners, but I think we can better work that.
Mrs. Tressi.
Thank you, Madam Chairman. So, Mike, tell me from planning, what was the vote? Was it a unanimous vote to bring?
One vote, no.
4-1. And you just made a statement that you didn't realize there were two owners. So when you don't know all the facts, it's really hard, it seems unfair to bring even a preliminary to council at this point. I think that you should know what's going on when you vote at planning and then bring it to us. And secondly, I think having that trash in the front of the building is ridiculous. They're going to pull in that driveway. You're going to have employees, probably minimum wage, no matter what that wage is, taking trash out to that trash bin. They're not going to care if they make it into that corral. I watched McDonald's the other day. They have their corrals in the back of their property, the back northwest corner. Nice young man had a dumpster full of trash. He dropped a cardboard box, but it was flattened. He took the rest, went into the corral, he dumped his dumpster out, and I said, I wonder if he'll pick up the cardboard that he dropped. And he didn't. So now we could have that in the front of Mayfield Road. If you are concerned about the corridor plan that we've paid for, and you're concerned about how the city looks, if there's any beautification, I surely wouldn't want to put that trash thing anywhere near the front of that property. It should have been suggested that it be turned around at the Planning Commission before you brought it to us, because I always feel that when you bring it to us, planning has already made some kind of mental decision on it, and then it comes to us. I'd like you to go back, and I also think that the two parties should talk. Mr. Zimmerman, Rob Zimmerman, I believe, was the attorney. He's not here to get up and speak, and I think it's a bad plan, personally. I'm not even crazy about bringing Popeyes here, but it is what it is, and we can't tell a business owner or landowner what to do. I know, I work in real estate, so I get it. You can't tell a shopping center owner what to do with their property, but we have rules and regulations, and I think if we suggest how that building should look, it only helps how the city looks, so people don't comment that we have 20 automotive stores, mattress stores, and fast food restaurants. Let's make it look the best we can. And I expect that as they develop this, they put trees the size of that are shown on that plan, not trees that are 6 inches tall, which happened at Conrad's. They put in little short 6-inch shrubs. They died, and then there's no landscaping. So put up 6-foot trees, add that expense to your build out, and maybe it won't look as bad as it could. Thanks.
Hold on, Mr. Monaco.
I just can't believe that some member of council are suggesting that we approve something that we do not agree with. I mean, I just can't believe that I heard that.
Okay. Mr. Mano.
I don't like the project from the beginning. I spent a lot of time down there, just parked there, surveying that area. And I'm going to tell you what, that rendering that we saw tonight was very nice, very well done, but it certainly looks or appears to make that property look a lot bigger than it actually is. I think that's the wrong thing to put there. You're going to have 2 restaurants, maybe 3, within a 500-foot proximity. What the hell is that going to do for the traffic down there? I drove out that back driveway to utilize the light to get onto Mayfield Road. And let me tell you, I had a problem getting out there. You're going to have the same situation there that those folks on Iroquois have with that Dairy Queen. The people who live there are going to have a hell of a time getting in and out of their own street at their detriment because of the congestion that that's going to cause there. I agree with Mr. DeJohn. You got a Verizon building, which is a standalone, which has more than enough room. You got Mayland across the street. There's a lot of places that they can go and put that. We can't dictate what a property owner does, but the city has rules too. And the city has to be able to say, you know what? We don't want that there. We don't like that there. I will not support the project. Not as is.
Mr. DeJohn.
And let's not forget about the people that came to us tonight about their restaurant in back that's just barely breaking even. They're putting in 12, 14-hour days, and they're barely breaking out even. So, you know, we have to think of the other resident, or the other stores that are in there right now. So and from what I've seen, I served a short time on Planning Commission, and usually when I saw a preliminary plan, it was usually fast-tracked into an approval of a final plan. So now it's going to take a majority of council to vote this down, and I would suggest that we vote this down. Thank you.
Are there any other further questions or comments? Okay. Roll call on the motion to approve.
Mr. DeJohn,
No.
Mr. Monaco,
No.
Mrs. Teresi,
No.
Mr. Balestrea, Mr. Mano,
No.
Mrs. Sabetta,
No.
Mrs. Snyder.
No. This motion has been denied. Moving to motion B, Mr. Murphy.
Thank you, Madam Chair. A motion to approve the preliminary site plan for a redevelopment plan for the CVS building located at 5901 Mayfield Road.
Is there a motion to approve?
Move.
Moved by Mr. Belstrea. And second
Second.
by Mrs. Sabetta. This is for an approval of a preliminary site plan for CVS. So we've had a lot of discussion about the other building, Popeyes, so does any member of council have any questions or comments about CVS? Mr. DeJohn.
So I just heard the other night that CVS is closing a lot of their stores down because their leases are up. I don't know how true that is, but I think this person knew what he was talking about. But this store is not slated, I believe, not to be closed down until 2025. So then why are we looking at this redevelopment right now, since it's still a CVS?
Mr. Chonacki, would you have that answer, possibly?
If I
Mr.
could, you know, it's.
That's okay.
The
Mr. Murphy.
developer brought this to Planning Commission at this time in order to find out whether or not the development that is proposed would be accepted by the city. It's the developer's timing, not the city's. They can bring it up whenever they want. They want it on Planning Commission's agenda. And also, I should add that even if the preliminary approval is not supported by council, the developer can still go to Planning Commission and request that the approval be a final approval, and that would come back to council. The bottom line is that this is going to come back to council. So it's just approving a preliminary to give the developer some idea where council is. And I think the developer has an idea where council is, so it'll proceed. It's up to the developer to set the timing.
Thank you for that, Mr. Murphy. So what I have a problem with is we got the mayor, we got Mr. Balestria. Mayor appoints Mr. Balestria on the Planning Commission, appoints all those members, really talking us into this. So I really think that,
Mr. that, you don't need to make that comment. He did his job by putting someone on the planning commission because that's who we put on there.
I'm
It's not-
just saying how it's all,
Yeah.
how it's all orchestrated. So-
Well, okay.
Okay. Well, I would suggest everyone vote this down also. Thank you.
Mr. Monaco.
Mr. Murphy, I have a procedural question here. Shouldn't the first step be for them to go to the planning commission and then come to council?
You're okay with that? That's what,
They-
that's what they've done.
Okay, I'm sorry. You were mentioning something about going to planning commission just a few minutes ago. Is that-
Well,
is that
they have to go
again?
back
Okay.
again.
Okay.
Considering that council, their original submission, shall we say, was not approved by council. So now they have to go back and see how, if at all, they want to tweak their submission to see whether or not they can make a submission that will be approved by council. Ultimately, it's going to come back to council because council has to approve.
Okay, but I
all
guess the
development.
question is, shouldn't they get a final approval by planning commission before they come to council?
They will. This is only preliminary.
Okay.
Let me try to explain it again. This gives the developer some idea where council is. First of all, where planning commission is with regard to the development, also where council is. Now it's up to the developer, assuming that both of these motions will fail, to go back and tweak the development, fine-tune the development, modify whatever you want to call it, in order to put it into a position where then they'll go back to council, or go back to planning commission, and then planning commission, if it approves it, will then come to council.
So they basically come and then ask for the universe. If they don't get the universe, then they will be happy with the moon and the sun.
They ask for what they ask for.
Okay, thank you.
I'm not going to comment on that, but they need something that's going to get by planning commission in order to get to council.
Thank you.
So I just have a question. The developers are here this evening. Is there anything that you would like to ask council before you go back to the table with all of this? I mean, you can come up and ask us any, you know.
I'm Dale Greeter with Arkinetics, 3723 Pearl Road, Cleveland. I'm the architect for Popeyes. You know, I understand your concerns and your concerns,
Oh, Mr. Sokoloff, you have to let them talk, please.
but you build restaurants around other restaurants to attract business. That's the way you get more people to the area. You said your business is barely making it. With additional restaurants brings additional customers, not just for us, but for you too, and for you as well. And as far as the trash goes, this restaurant is under 2,000 square feet. There's maybe 20 people as the occupant load. 10 of those are going to be employees. So you'll have maybe 10 people in the dining room, but you're going to put 60 cars through the drive-throughs. So the majority of the trash is going to be given out to the drive-through. And how does your trash operate, just out of curiosity?
No, don't. No,
can't-
don't
don't- you
converse,
can't
please.
ask.
Okay.
Make your
Just
statement,
make the
and that's it.
statement.
Well, you know, the trash is going to be minimal, and, you know, it's usually picked up in the early morning hours. And so I don't think, pedestrian, I think the employees are at more danger by walking to some remote point on the site when there is a lot of traffic going in and out of the shopping center versus a garbage truck coming in at 6, 7 o'clock in the morning. That's
Mrs.
all.
Stressy.
So can I ask you, do you have restaurants lined up for your project?
What do you mean?
For the CVS project.
For the CVS?
I'm
You're going to put in,
I'm just for the Popeyes.
Mr. Chernacki, do you know, do you have restaurants that are begging to get in there and get on Mayfield Road?
I don't know. We don't know when CVS is even going to leave. Well, this is to ensure that in the event they were to depart, that we had a plan in place so that the building didn't become vacant.
So you are willing to build a building with 3 individual storefronts, even if you don't have a restaurant ready to sign on the dotted line?
The building already exists. It's the CVS with 3 storefronts.
I understand it exists, but you're going to redevelop that, am I correct? That CVS into 3 storefronts?
That would be the plan, yes.
That would be the plan. My question again is, do you have 3 restaurants or 2 restaurants or 1 restaurant that is as interested in moving into that space?
I have no idea.
Thank you. Because I know what we have across the street at Mayland and how difficult that back portion of Mayland is. And because of Sheets and what's in front, we may have a difficult time having that leased. And will they have restaurants, or will these 3 storefronts be empty as well until they find a tenant?
The CVS is our tenant. This is just trying to be responsible in the event that CVS were.
I understand. No, I understand. We're looking at the future. I'm just wondering if, like, someone's doing their homework to find that restaurant who, on the, what you showed us here,
Sorry, I don't know. I'm not certain that we've planned for, or it's clear that what CVS's intentions are. So I don't know if we've planned that far, because I just think right now they still are our tenant.
Thanks.
All right, thank you very much for coming up. Any further questions? No, that was during public portion. I'm sorry. We just had to open it up to try and put closure to these 2 ordinances or motions. Well, you can tell us after the meeting. Thank you. Roll call on the motion to approve.
Mrs. Teresi.
No.
Mrs. Sabetta.
No.
Mr. Monaco.
No.
Mr. Mano. Mr. DeJohn.
No.
Mr. Balestrea.
Yes.
Mrs. Snyder.
No, this motion has been denied. Moving to motion C, Mr. Murphy.
Thank you, Madam Chair. A motion to authorize the sale of Service Department vehicles through GovDeals. Vehicle 1 is the 2010 Ford Explorer. The VIN is 1FMEU7DE3A90520. Mileage 78,916. Vehicle 2 is a 2008 Ford F-350. The VIN number is 1FTWX31Y78ED07515. The mileage is 94,380. Vehicle 3 is 2012 Vactor. The VIN is 1HTWKAZR3DJ169508.
Is there a motion to approve? Moved by Mr. Mano and second by Mr. Belstrea. This motion would just give the city authority to sell the vehicles in the service department that are no longer needed in our fleet. Any questions or comments from council? Roll call on the motion to approve.
Mr. Balestrea.
Yes.
Mrs. Teresi.
Yes.
Mrs. Sabetta.
Yes.
Mr. DeJohn.
Yes.
Mr. Monaco.
Yes.
Mr. Mano. Mrs. Snyder.
Yes, this motion has now been carried. Are there any new business or comments from council? All right, I will entertain a motion to adjourn. Moved by Mrs. Tressi and second by Mrs. Sabetta. All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Thank you. We are now adjourned.